SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear students, you are welcome in this class. I am Dr. Dinesh Kumar, Principal Scientist from Division of Agronomy, ICAR, Indian Agricultural Research Institute, Pusa Campus, New Delhi. Today we are going to have lecture number 3 of the course Agronomy of Oilseed, Fiber and Sugar Crops. The title of the lecture is Nutrient, Water and Weed Management in Rapeseed and Mustard. In the last lecture, you have seen adaptability, climate and different sowing techniques, seed rate, spacing, kind of cultural requirements were discussed. In this lecture, we are going to discuss different aspects of nutrient, water and weed management in rapeseed and mustard crops. So, learning objectives overall are to get acquainted with nutrient and water management practices in rapeseed and mustard crops. First of all, we will see that how the nutrient deficiencies are visible on the rapeseed and mustard plants, and then also see what are the soil conditions that allow nutrient deficiencies in certain crops, and also discuss the water management issues in rapeseed mustard crops, along with the details weeds and weed management options in rapeseed and mustard crop. You also know that weed do lot of damage to the rapeseed and mustard crop or any other crops also, particularly during the initial stages. So therefore, what are the important weeds and how they can be managed will be discussed in this lecture. So first of all, let us see some difficult words. Glossary. Furrow irrigation. Irrigation method in which water travels or passes through the field by means of small channels between each group of rows. Herbicide. Many people get confused about herbicide or weedicide. They still use the term weedicide, but there is no term weedicide these days, because weedicide means you need certain specific chemicals which kills or which kill weed only. But there are no chemical which will kill weed only, because you have these herbicides or chemicals, they can kill the crop also if you use them at higher doses. And many of the herbicide or chemicals are non-selective also. So therefore, it is proper to use term herbicide, not weedicide. So herbicide is a chemical substance or cultured biological organism used to kill or suppress the growth of plants. Then irrigate or irrigation, to supply water to land or crops to help growth, typically by means of channels or sprayers. Irrigation scheduling, the decision of when and how much water to apply to a field. Purpose is to maximize irrigation efficiencies by applying the exact amount of water needed by a crop. Fundamentally, the basic purpose of irrigation scheduling is to get more crop per drop, or in other way, you need to improve the irrigation use efficiency and reduce the losses of water from the soil or during the application. Irrigation scheduling also involves the quantity of water to be applied, the duration or the time when it should be applied, what should be the optimum method of application of water. All these aspects are covered in irrigation scheduling. Then mineralization, conversion of an organic compound to a transitional or inorganic form by microbes. It results in increased availability and uptake of nutrients by crops. So mineralization is simply conversion of organic materials into organic compounds, or simply it is decomposition, kind of decomposition of organic matter. What happens when farmers or whenever you add organic material into the soil in the form of manure, in the form of crop residues or any other organic material, it goes the process of decomposition and two products are the end products. One is humus and other is mineral. So mineral happens by the process of mineralization, where a lot of bacteria, fungi and variety of organisms are involved in the process of mineralization. So basically it is a biological process. Non-selective herbicide, an herbicide that is generally toxic to all plants treated. Some selective herbicides may become non-selective if used at very high rates. So non-selective herbicide means they will kill all kind of plants wherever you apply them. The glyphosate or Roundup is an example of non-selective herbicide which will kill all kind of vegetation. Post-emergence herbicide, this kind of herbicide or chemical is applied after emergence of the specified weed or crop. Opposite to it is pre-emergence herbicide applied to the soil before emergence of the specified weed or crop, or ability to control weeds before or soon after they emerge. Means they are generally applied before the emergence or germination of the crop or weed. Pre-plant application, applied before planting or before sowing or before transplanting of a crop, either as a foliar application to control existing vegetation or as a soil application. Generally pre-plant application is happened with case of flucloranin also. Now we come to the main topic, that is nutrient management. So nutrient management is application of nutrients through commercial fertilizers, organic manures, biofertilizer, crop residues or other sources to crop. Emphasis is given on 4R. So actually what happens whenever we grow the crop, the nutrients are removed by the crops, and then what happens, the soil get deficiency of the nutrients, means the fertility of the soil is reduced. The reduced fertility can be enhanced for growing of the next crop only by application of nutrients, and these nutrients can be applied through different sources. Sources may be organic manure, biofertilizer or chemical fertilizer, etc. So far chemical fertilizers are concerned or organic manures are concerned, there should be adoption of 4R. 4R means right amount, the right quantity of nutrient or fertilizer or manure should be supplied. If you use excess quantity of manure or nutrient, then losses will be there, and it will be definitely mindless use of manures or nutrients. Then right source is also important, because some sources will give you more efficiency, more uptake and more yield of the crop. So better to choose the right source. And then comes the right method is also important, because what happens, for example, phosphatic fertilizer, potassic fertilizer, they should be applied basally. There is no need to go for top dressing of these fertilizer. So better to go for basal placement. However, in case of nitrogen application, one-time application of whole quantity of nutrient or nitrogen should be avoided. Better to go for split application of nitrogen. So method may be top dressing, may be basal application, etc. Sometimes foliar application can also be useful. And then right timing, right time of application is also important. It depends upon the requirement of the nutrient at different growth stages. So therefore, in nutrient management, one need to follow fundamental principles. These fundamental principles are right amount, right source, right method and right time of application of fertilizer or manure. By considering the above 4 R's, the efficiency of nutrient is enhanced. So overall, the benefit of adopting all these 4 rights or R's is that we increase the efficiency. Increased efficiency means we can produce more with each unit of the nutrient or with each unit of the fertilizer. So therefore, efficiency results in reduced environmental pollution, number 1. Number 2, the increased profitability of the farmers. So thus results in protection of the environment, reduced amount of nutrient supply or cost and enhanced profit to the farmer. So therefore, it is really necessary to use fertilizers and nutrients judiciously, which is your nutrient management. Now we will discuss one by one deficiency symptoms of nitrogen. For example, here you are seeing deficiency symptom of nitrogen which normally comes on the older leaves. You can see older leaves, they are getting yellowing of the older leaves. You can see here also this leaf is getting yellow and this is older leaves. So what happens, we need to understand the role of the nitrogen. Nitrogen is very important for synthesis of chlorophyll itself. If the chlorophyll molecules contains carbon, nitrogen also. Besides, magnesium is also there in chlorophyll molecule. So it required for the synthesis of chlorophyll. The photosynthesis will not happen if you do not have chlorophyll. And it is part of the protein, RNA, DNA synthesis, and variety of functions are there for the nitrogen in the plant systems. Enzymes, your enzymes are made up of nitrogen. Nitrogen is there in enzymes. So it is really very important nutrient from the perspective of plant growth. Now you see what happens when there is nitrogen deficiency. So definitely the growth will be retarded, the plant will get shorter in height and thin stems will be there and reduce branching and number of size of the pods. So branching is severely affected if you have nitrogen deficiency. And this nutrient nitrogen is mobile in the plant system. If it is mobile in the plant system, that means the deficiency symptoms will appear on the lower leaves or lower part of the plant first, because it can be easily translocated to the upper part. It is mobile, so it will go to the upper leaves and lower leaves will show the deficiency symptom, which is yellowing of the leaves. So yellow chlorotic leaves then turn brown and become necrotic if the deficiency of the nitrogen is severe, and if it continues, that means that the leaf will die. Necrosis here means the death of the tissues. What are the soil conditions where you will find these nitrogen deficiency symptoms more common than other conditions? So soils having low in organic matter will show you nitrogen deficiency, because most of the nitrogen in soil is confined to nitrogen. More than 90% nitrogen is in organic form in the soil. So if there is no sufficient organic matter in the soil, then the supply of nitrogen will be less. If you increase the organic matter content in the soil, that means you are increasing the nitrogen in the soil. So generally speaking, soils low in organic matter will have low nitrogen supply. Light texture sandy soils that have been leached. So in light texture soils where the pore spaces, macro pore spaces are larger, so in those cases it is quite easy to get the leaching of nitrate from the soil. And secondly, in light soils, the cation exchange capacity, the CEC, the power of the soil to hold cations reduces. So therefore, this ammonical or nitrate nitrogen is not held properly on the colloids. So losses by leaching can be there. Soil exhausted by intensive cropping system. Soils where farmers are growing continuously cereal. Under those conditions, these exhaustive crops, they remove lot of nutrients and your soil gets deficient in nitrogen. So therefore, under intensive cropping system, one can experience the deficiency of not just nitrogen, many other nutrients also there. So, and also in acid soils having pH less than 6 or maybe alkaline soil having pH more than 8, one can experience nitrogen deficiency. Now after nitrogen deficiency, we go to phosphorus deficiency symptoms, and you can see here purple or reddish discoloration of the leaves is there, and this is for lower leaves. See on the left side, this kind of deficiency symptoms, the purplish or reddish color appears on the lower leaves. This is typical deficiency symptom of phosphorus in rapeseed and mustard crops. So because phosphorus is very important, it plays a role in ADP and ATP, adenosine diphosphate and adenosine triphosphate. So energy bonds are there where phosphorus is mandatorily required for the synthesis of ADP, ATP, etc. And it also plays very important role in root development and flowering and seed development. Phosphorus has immense role. It also plays a role in resistance of the crops or plant against the insect pests and diseases. So, number of roles are being played by phosphorus in the plant. So, if there is deficiency, definitely it is going to affect the growth and development of the plants. Now, you see restricted root growth is restricted growth may be there, stem is thin and short, root development adversely affected, and few branching is also affected. Means if your plants are phosphorus deficient, then the branching will be reduced. If branching is reduced, definitely you will get less flowers, less pods. So, hence the productivity will be lowered. And phosphorus is mobile in the plant system. Therefore, deficiency will come on the lower leaves. It can be easily translocated from lower parts to the upper parts of the plant because it is mobile in the system. And also purple or red discoloration will be there on the tips and margins of the old leaf. That you have also seen, and stem can also become purple. So, you have already seen the deficiency symptom of phosphorus. Now, what are the soil conditions that favor the phosphorus deficiency? So, soils having low organic matter because many times phosphorus is also part of certain proteins. So, if you have low organic matter, that means low phosphatic proteins will be there. So, supply of phosphorus through organic matter will reduce. So, reduction in level of organic matter also reduces supply of phosphorus to the soil. Under alkaline and calcareous conditions or under too much acidic conditions, phosphorus gets precipitated. The available phosphorus is in the form of H2PO4 -1 and HPO4 -1. These phosphate ions are there. So, these ions are ideally maximum availability is there between 6.5 to 7 or 6 to 7 pH. If pH is less than 6 or say 5 or 5.5 or more than 7.5, say 8.5 or 9, under those conditions phosphorus gets fixed, phosphorus gets precipitated. So, its availability is reduced. Under acidic conditions, it can precipitate with iron and availability will be reduced. Similarly, under high pH condition, it can make octa calcium phosphate or tricalcium phosphate. Therefore, availability is reduced. So, overall you need ideal pH between say 6.5 to 7 or 6 to 7.5. Now, we come to the potassium deficiency symptoms. So, you can see the marginal firing and tip burning are the typical symptom of potassium deficiency. So, you can see on the margins of the leaves, there is brownish color, the kind of firing as it somebody has fired the leaf, it looks like this. See this marginal firing and tip burning. Tip burning are the typical symptom of phosphorus deficiency. See on the left side, marginal firing, tip is burnt. So, these are typical potassium deficiency symptoms which happen in lower leaves because it is also mobile like phosphorus and nitrogen. Potassium is also mobile in the plant system. Therefore, its deficiency symptoms comes on the lower leaves. So, crop appears as wilted. In dry or hot weather, this is the K deficiency symptoms. Growth is reduced, internodes shorter, mobile in plant system. So, deficiency symptoms come on older leaves. Marginal scorching or firing or burning of older leaves. Symptoms develop as yellow-brown marginal and interveinal chlorosis. As symptoms advance, necrosis starts. So, again like nitrogen, here also you will get death of the tissues or death of the leaves or part of the leaves, and eventually it can dry and die. Now, what are the soil conditions where you will find this K deficiency so frequently? Soils formed from parent material low in K, means the parent material, the original material from which soil was made in the beginning, that was deficient in potassium. Hence, the soil will surely be deficient in potassium. Light texture soils where K has been leached under heavy rainfall area or excess irrigation. Light soils, as you know, macropods are more in number. So, therefore, leaching is quite common from the light texture soils or coarse texture soils. Leaching of potassium is there. because also you will get lower cation exchange capacity in those soils, then adsorption of potassium will be less. So, it is liable to be leached from the soil. Soil low in organic matter, soil with wide sodium potassium or magnesium potassium or cold calcium potassium ratio, and in acid soil you can experience potassium deficiency, particularly when pH is less than 6. Now we go to the sulfur. Here you can see the young leaves. The younger leaves are getting yellow. Uniform chlorosis may be there in younger leaves. So, it suggests that it is not mobile. If it was mobile, then deficiency symptoms would have come to the lower leaves. But in case of sulfur deficiency, the deficiency symptom will appear first on the younger leaves. So, it is just opposite of nitrogen. In nitrogen, you get symptoms on lower leaves or older leaves. In sulfur deficiency, symptoms come on younger leaves or upper leaves. However, the chlorosis is there in both the cases. Now, plants are chlorotic, so sulfur needed in the chlorophyll synthesis. Of course, it is not part of the chlorophyll, but synthesis of chlorophyll you need sulfur. Growth is reduced, leaves are small, flowering delayed, number or size of pods is reduced, and fewer seeds per pod. So, overall you can say that growth and yield parameters decline, therefore, the yield will also decline. Immobile in plant as already discussed, so deficiency will come on younger leaves. Chlorosis appears uniform on entire leaf including the veins. Veins may also become chlorotic. Now, soil conditions favoring sulfur deficiency. Soils having low in organic matter, because sulfur like phosphorus or nitrogen can also be part of certain protein. If it is part of protein, that means it will be part of the organic matter added to the soil. So, if you have sufficient organic matter, more organic matter, that means your sulfur deficiency may not be there. However, in soils where organic matter levels are lower, one can experience sulfur deficiency. And sandy soils that have been leached by heavy rainfall or excess irrigation. You know, sulfur is finally converted into sulfate, and sulfate is taken up by the crops or plants. So, this sulfate is easily leached from the soil because it is negatively charged, and the cation exchange capacity of lighter soil is also low. So, leaching of sulfate is possible, particularly when your rainfall is high or irrigation frequency is also high. Soil exhausted by intensive cropping, soils derived from parent material that was basically or inherently poor in sulfur. Acid soils having pH below 6 are also deficient in sulfur. Now, see the iron deficiency. Iron deficiency is there in the rapeseed and mustard crops, and you can see here the upper leaves are affected first and lower leaves are not affected. That means it is immobile in the plant system, it does not mobile. And another interesting symptom here you can see that the veins are green. Veins are green, only intervenal area has become chlorotic. And finally, on this right extreme, on the top, you can see it whitish color has come in the intervenal area. This is typical symptom of iron deficiency in rapeseed and mustard crops. So, intervenal chlorosis means between the veins you get chlorosis of young leaves, retarded growth. The growth is retarded, means reduced growth. Here growth reduction means your leaf size may decrease or leaf size may not increase, or branching may have reduced. Likewise, the height, plant height may have reduced. So, overall leaf area index may have reduced. So, this is reduction in growth. Leaves are smaller in size, number and size of pods may also reduce, and pods chlorotic, means sometimes your siliqua or pods can also become chlorotic. Immobile in plants, so deficiency of iron first appear on younger leaves. Younger leaves become chlorotic, and chlorosis extend the full length of leaf, starting from base to the tip. You have already seen in the picture this. On the right side you can see here. So, whole leaf is getting chlorotic. In severe deficiency, leaves become almost white or bleached, means the green color will totally appear, and they can become totally white in color. Now, what are the soil conditions where one can find the deficiency of iron? Sandy soils having low total iron content. There may be low levels of total iron content in the soil. If total iron content is low, hence the available nitrogen will also be low. Alkaline soils or calcareous soils with very low iron. Under those conditions also one can have iron deficiency, particularly under acidic soil conditions where iron gets precipitated with phosphorus. Under those conditions one can find the deficiency of iron, but it is towards lower pH. Peat and muck soils where organic matter ties up iron and reduces its availability in the soil solution. Acid soils with high soluble zinc, manganese, copper or nickel that can hinder uptake of iron despite high iron availability. Alkaline soils having more than 7.5 pH will also be deficient in iron. Particularly, you have already heard the calcareous soils. Calcareous soils having high pH, they are also deficient in iron, and lot of problem is there for availability of iron in calcareous soils. So, just now you have seen that how these nutrients are important, particularly nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. All these nutrients are getting deficient in soils, and you have also seen that the sulfur and iron are also important nutrients which can support good growth of the rapeseed and mustard crop. All these nutrients have to be there in the soil in sufficient quantities, right quantities to realize good growth and yield of the crop. So, in general, rapeseed mustard crops are grown on coarse texture soils. We have talked a lot, and it was the reason for lower nutrient availability also. So, which are also low in organic matter. Under such situation, organic manures can be used to boost the production of oil seeds and to improve fertilizer use efficiency. So, it is always advisable to go for integrated plant nutrient management, means supplying all the nutrients in balanced amount through the combined use of different sources, different compatible sources. These sources could be biofertilizer, organic manures, crop residues and fertilizers also, chemical fertilizers. So, we need to optimize the combination, but better to start with the organic manures. So far possible, as far as possible, we should go for organic manures, supply the part of the nutrients through organic manures like farmyard manure, compost or other kind of organic manures, green manures, etc. So, under such conditions, organic manures can be used to boost the production of oil seeds and to improve fertilizer use efficiency. So, if we add organic manures to the soil, it is not just they will supply only nutrients, they will also improve the physical, chemical and biological properties of the soil. If you have your soils have sufficient levels of organic matter, then it can retain more water, and more water means better nutrient availability and better nutrient uptake under these crops. So, application of 10 tons farmyard manure per hectare was found effective in improving the seed yield. And of course, balanced NPK fertilization is the key, is more essential even at low levels of fertilizer uses for maintaining long-term fertility. Also, adequate amount of sulfur, boron and zinc need to be applied as per soil test basis. Now, lot of emphasis is being given by the Government of India also on soil health card, where different parameters of soil are getting tested and report card are provided, and according to which the nutrient should be supplied to the soil. So, this is your balanced nutrition. The nutrients which are deficient should also be supplied in right quantities. So, also the optimum fertilizer doses recommended for rain-fed and irrigated conditions are given here. In case if soil tests are not available, then the following or such kind of recommendations can be adopted by the farmer. So, here are the recommended fertilizer doses kg per hectare P and K. So, in these doses, phosphorus is in the form of P2O5 and potassium is in the form of K2O. So for example, here it is written K. So it does not mean K, it means K2O, amount of K2O. Similarly here P is P2O5, this P is P2O5, this K is K2O, kg per hectare. So let us take the case of Assam. Under rain-fed condition for mustard 50, 30 kilogram N-P2O5 K2O per hectare is recommended. For Toria in Assam, under rain-fed condition 50, 30 kilogram N-P2O5 and K2O is recommended. Take case of West Bengal under rain-fed condition for Toria crop 45, 35 and 15 N-P2O5 and K2O per hectare is recommended. Now in the West Bengal, if your conditions are irrigated, then you can increase the nitrogen amount to 80 to 120 kilogram and phosphorus and potash are 40. Then comes the North Bengal under rain-fed condition for mustard crop 40, 20, 20 is N-P2O5 K2O per hectare. Similarly for North Bengal, for Toria crop it is 40, 20, 20. Now see for Odisha under rain-fed condition for mustard 40, 20, 20. For Toria also 40, 20, 20. For irrigated condition instead of 40 it has become 60, 30, 30 for Odisha. Now for Bihar under rain-fed condition 30, 15, 15 for mustard, 30, 15, 15 for Toria. Then for irrigated condition in Bihar 80, 40, 40, 60, 40, 40 for Toria and 60, 40, 40 for brown sarso. So similarly, just you go to MP now. For Madhya Pradesh under rain-fed condition 60, 20, 20, 40, 20. Here potassium is not there for Toria. For brown sarso it is 30, 20, 20. For irrigated condition you see 60, 30, 20 kg N-P2O5 and K2O for mustard crop. For Toria crop in Madhya Pradesh you get 60, 30, 20. Likewise you get for Gujarat or Rajasthan. Let us check for Rajasthan. For Rajasthan you have rain-fed condition or irrigated condition. For irrigated condition 60, 40, 60 kilogram nitrogen, 40 kilogram P2O5. For Toria 40, 20. For brown sarso 60, 40. So here potassium is not recommended. Perhaps those soils may be having good amount of potassium. Then in Delhi it is 30, 20 for rain-fed condition of mustard. For irrigated condition of mustard 60, 40, 40. Now for Punjab 40, 20 for mustard and for Toria it is only nitrogen 40. For brown sarso 20, 20. Similarly you can see for Himachal Pradesh under rain-fed condition mustard is 40, 20 and your Toria is 40, only nitrogen is required in Himachal Pradesh. Similarly for brown sarso just 40 kg nitrogen in Himachal Pradesh. If it is irrigated condition of Himachal Pradesh, then NPK is 60, 40, 40. 60 kilogram nitrogen, 40 kilogram P2O5 and 40 kilogram K2O. For Toria it is 60, 40, 40. For brown sarso 60, 40, 40. For Jammu and Kashmir under rain-fed condition for mustard it is 30, 20, 20. Toria 30, 20, 20 and brown sarso 30, 20, 20. And for irrigated condition of Jammu Kashmir, for brown sarso it is 30, 20, 20. So what you are realizing here is that the level of application of nutrients are lower particularly under rain-fed condition. If your conditions are irrigated, then you need to increase the application of nutrient in the soil. And you also get different kind of conclusions, like some crops are in some state the requirement of nutrient is less than the other states. So these kind of information are important when we go for cultivation of rapeseed and mustard. And it is interesting, the time of application of these fertilizer is also important. So now we will discuss one by one how these nutrients should be supplied to the soil. So a significant response to nitrogen application has been observed from 60 to 80 kg per hectare under rain-fed condition, and up to 120 kg nitrogen under irrigated condition. So you can see that under irrigated condition you need more nutrients compared to the rain-fed condition. The accumulation of curve during growth period is sigmoid curve. The nitrogen accumulation is a sigmoid curve. Sigmoid curve is like this. You can see this curve. The initial is, for example, it is the growth, and on y-axis, suppose you have the, on x-axis you can have the time, on y-axis you can have the growth in terms of dry matter or other variables. So you can see initially with the time, initially the growth is very slow, and then in this point, from this point to this point, you can see growth is very fast. It is increasing almost at an increasing rate, and then it is decreasing, increasing but at a decreasing rate. So this is your sigmoid curve. So this pattern of nutrient uptake is there. According to this, we should increase the supply. Supply of nutrients should be more here, where the growth is increasing at increasing rate. So here there should not be deficiency of the nutrients. Now, so the time of nitrogen application is important for getting better response to applied nitrogen. In multi-location trials under AICRPRM, All India Coordinated Research Project on rapeseed and mustard. Remember, AICRPRM means All India Coordinated Research Project on rapeseed and mustard. So split application of nitrogen, 50% basal means half of the recommended dose should be applied at the time of sowing, and remaining half as top dressing after the first irrigation. So this is a general recommendation of nitrogen for irrigated conditions. Now another recommendation is 50% nitrogen can be applied basal and 50% as foliar spray. So one recommendation is there for foliar spray also, and first spray at flower initiation, the dose of 40 kg nitrogen per hectare soil application and 20 kg nitrogen per hectare as foliar sprays. Proves as good as 80 kg nitrogen per hectare applied to the soil. So under certain conditions, foliar application can also be adopted. This method saves 25% of the fertilizer nitrogen without compromising with the seed yield. Foliar application of nitrogen has a scope, particularly in rain-fed conditions where soil moisture is not adequate to support soil application, especially at later stages, because for availability and uptake of nitrogen or any other nutrient from the soil, you need adequate moisture. If adequate moisture or water is not there in the soil, then foliar spray could be useful. Now phosphorus management, the best results are obtained only through balanced fertilizer use, and in the absence of nitrogen there is little response to phosphorus. In North India, the P2O5, the general doses are 30 to 50 kg P2O5 per hectare depending upon the availability of soil moisture. Use of single superphosphate should be preferred because it contains 12% sulfur also, and being a oilseed crop, these rapeseed and mustard need good quantity of sulfur also. The potassium recommendation in different state is 20 to 40 kg, and whatever potassium requirement is there, it should be applied basally at the time of sowing or planting. For sulfur, rapeseed mustard has the highest requirement for sulfur among all the oilseed crop like soybean, groundnut, etc. Generally, sulfur uptake is 9 to 50% of the nitrogen uptake and similar to or more than phosphorus uptake. For example, if P uptake is considered 100%, sulfur uptake will be 60% of cereals, 76% of legumes and 102% of oilseeds, and as high as 180% for rapeseed and mustard. This shows the value of importance of sulfur in rapeseed and mustard crops. Now, the amount of sulfur taken up to produce 1 ton of economic yield, that is main produce, is considered to be 3 to 4 kg for cereals, 8 kg for pulses and 12 kg for oilseed. So again you see the value of sulfur in oilseed production. Application of sulfur with balanced amount of other nutrients significantly increases. Means in addition to nitrogens, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur should also be added, and other deficient nutrients should also be added, so that balanced nutrition is adopted. To correct sulfur deficiency, generally 30 to 40 kilograms of sulfur per hectare is recommended. It can be supplied through gypsum or through elemental sulfur or through some other suitable sources. Micronutrients, zinc deficiency is fairly widespread. Indian mustard response to zinc application should be 10 to 20 kilograms per hectare is zinc sulfate as basal or 0.5% spray. Next to zinc is boron nutrition is important. Deficiency of boron could be corrected by application of 10 kg per hectare of fertilizer. Borax. Borax can be applied at the rate of 10 kg per hectare. Now, after nutrient management, let us discuss water management. Oilseed brassicas were primarily rain-fed or dryland crops, but with availability of high-yielding varieties and remunerative prices, cultivation of these crops has shifted to irrigated conditions. So, initially it used to be a rain-fed group of crops, but with time it has become irrigated crop also. Now, more than 75% or say around 80% of rapeseed mustard crops are irrigated now. So, if they are irrigated crop now, proper irrigation management is also important, because to get more benefits from nutrient application, you need to optimize the water application also. So, presently there is about more than 75% area is irrigated. Under rain-fed water and moisture conservation is very, very important. In rain-fed conditions, if you are growing mustard, certain techniques to conserve the water should also be adopted. For example, mulching is good. One can go for narrow bed or broad bed kind of planting. Bed planter can be used for planting such kind of conditions. So, mustard requires about 300 to 400 millimeter of water, and the consumptive use of water varies from 200 to 300 millimeter. In general, mustard crop requires 2 irrigations. First at branching stage, very critical stage, 30 days after sowing, and the second irrigation at pod formation stage, 60 to 65 days after sowing. So, this is a recommendation of water management. The best time for first irrigation is 25 days when flowering has sufficiently advanced. The second irrigation should be given at fruiting stage or podding stage 55 days after sowing. This DAS is days after sowing in thoria and 60 days after sowing in mustard, because there are 8 different crops, their durations may be different, their varieties may be different. In thoria and yellow sarso, 1 irrigation at pre-flowering stage is sufficient for optimum crop performance. In thoria and yellow sarso, 1 irrigation at pre-flowering stage is sufficient for optimum crop performance. Now, after nutrient management and water management, now come to the weed management. Weeds are really very, very important because they reduce the quantity and quality of the produce. So, weeds are really unwanted or undesirable plants which grow out of place. They grow at a place where they are not desirable. Therefore, the name weed. What happens when they grow along with the crop plant, say rapeseed mustard plant, particularly during initial period? They compete for space, that is light, they compete for water, they compete for nutrients, and variety of resources are shared by crop plants as well as the weeds. So, that way they can reduce the growth of the associated crop and result in the reduced growth, or sometimes there may be reduction in yield also. So, it is necessary to understand what kind of weeds are there. Weeds may be dicot weeds, or weeds may be monocot weeds, or weed may be belonging to Cyperaceae, Cyprus rotundus also. So, there may be 3 categories of the weeds. One is your broad-leaved weeds, which are mostly dicot plants, narrow-leaved weeds, which are monocot plants, and one between these two is your Cyperaceae family, Cyprus rotundus, etc. So, all these 3 kind of weeds can come in rapeseed and mustard, which can reduce the growth and yield of the crop. So, it is really important to know what are different weeds in rapeseed and mustard. The most common weeds are Chenopodium album. This is bathua because it is a winter season weed or mostly growing under rabi seasons. So it can come to any other rabi crop also. So it is also there in rapeseed and mustard crops. Similarly, Lathyrus species and your Melilotus indica and one Melilotus alba is also there. There are two kind of senji. Melilotus indica is yellow senji and Melilotus alba is your white senji or sapez senji. Then Cirsium arvens, Kateli, Cyprus rotundus, Motha and Fumaria parviflora, etc. These are few names. There can be many more weeds in rapeseed and mustard. Just see the identification of weeds. Chenopodium album, which is very common, a broadleaf weed, and it can reduce the growth or affect the growth of the plants. However, it finds certain other uses also. It is rich in minerals, certain minerals like iron, etc. And some people use it as vegetable also, but in crops it is a weed. And then besides bathua, one khar bathua is also there, Chenopodium murale. You can see the differences in Chenopodium album and Chenopodium murale. It is known as khar bathua. Next is Argemone mexicana, broadleaf weed. It is also called as Satyanashi. In Hindi, the name is Satyanashi and it is highly objectionable weed in case of mustard, rapeseed mustard crop. It is highly objectionable weed and its seed should not be there in the seed of mustard. So therefore, this weed must be controlled in rapeseed and mustard crop, particularly when it is grown for seed production. In seed production program, this Argemone mexicana should be removed. Then Convolvulus arvensis, it is a broad leaf weed and it is also known as morning glory. It is known as morning, M-O-R-N-I-N-G, morning glory. And other name is field bind weed, field bind weed. It has pinkish white flower, quite attractive flower also, and it can cause damage to the crop. It is kind of trailing, act as a climber also, and it can go up, cover the plant also. So sometimes it can be quite harmful, so it should be controlled. Not just this, but other weeds should also be controlled. The Cirsium arvens also kind of perennial weeds, and you can see that it is also known as Kateli, and it can come to the rapeseed and mustard crops. Fumaria parviflora, another rabi weed which may come to the rapeseed and mustard crops. So it can also cause some damage to the crop. And see Melilotus alba. Melilotus alba is leguminous plant. This is white flowers and senji, sapez senji. Similarly, you get pili senji, Melilotus indica. These two senji are weed in rapeseed and mustard or any other crop. But these two crops also find good use because they can fix atmospheric nitrogen also. Significant quantities of atmospheric nitrogen are fixed by these two weeds, and they can also be used as a fodder plant. They are rich in proteins, so it can act as a proteinous fodder also for animals. Of course, here it is weed. Now, question comes, seeing the damage done by weeds, how to control these weeds. So, also there are certain more weeds like Orobanche. Orobanche is parasitic weed. It is root parasite. The invasion of Orobanche, broom rape, the name is broom rape, has devastating effect on the cultivation in Rajasthan. Initial 45 to 60 days after sowing is critical period for crop weed competition. So initially your crop should be free from the weeds, and this Orobanche can be very destructive weed sometimes, which is total root parasite. You must be understanding the meaning of total root parasite. Means the parasite or this Orobanche is living on the roots of the mustard, and it is deriving its food and everything, food, water, everything from the plant or from the host plant. So mustard or rapeseed will act as a host plant, and Arobanki is your parasitic plant. So therefore, sometimes it can reduce the yields significantly. So uncontrolled weeds may cause 20 to 70% reduction in yield. Weeding should be done soon after the thinning. So as you know, the thinning operation is very, very important, where you maintain the optimum plant spacing within the rows. Between the rows is fixed. It can be 30, it can be 45 centimeter, depending upon the conditions and species. But within the row, you need to maintain a distance of 10 centimeter. Sometimes it can be 15 centimeter, depending upon the species. So to maintain this spacing, you need to uproot or remove or thin out certain plants. That process is called as thinning. So during that time, one can go for weeding also during the thinning. So this, besides creating soil mulch and reducing moisture losses, helps in better growth and proper development of crop plants. So what can be done? Some intelligent farmers, if you remove the plants from the intra-row spaces or from the rows, within the rows, then those plants can be kept on the free surface of the soil, and they can suppress the growth of the weeds also, and they can conserve the water also. Under rain-fed conditions, one hand weeding 25 days after sowing, while under irrigated conditions, two hand weedings 25 and 40 days after sowing are necessary. So you can see that for weed management in any crop, we need to follow the integrated weed management practices, and rapeseed and mustard should not be exception. In integrated weed management practices, we follow the combined approach of say cultural methods, cultural practices, your mechanical methods, mechanical practices, and your chemical practices or your biological practices. Variety of approaches of weed management or weed control are integrated. So what happens? The chemical use will be minimized, chemical use will be reduced, and profitability of crop production will increase. So in the cultural practices, you can have crop rotations, you can have spacing. Sometimes weeds are quite in large numbers. So what can be done? Narrow spacing can be adopted under those conditions. So some cultural practices, optimum dose of fertilizer is also important cultural practice to manage the weeds. So therefore, all these practices should be at optimum level to control the weeds. So under rain-fed condition, as I repeated, one hand weeding at 25 days after sowing is good, while under irrigated conditions, two hand weeding, because under irrigated condition, one can expect more weed numbers, more weed growth. So therefore, two hand weedings under irrigated conditions at 25 and 40 days after sowing are recommended. And pre-plant incorporation of fluchlorelin at the rate of 1 kg per hectare. So this 1 kg per hectare means fluchlorelin active ingredient. This is 1 kg. It should be pre-plant incorporated. This is interesting. It can control the weeds before the germination of the crop. So here the herbicide will be sprayed on the soil, applied on the soil, and it needs to be incorporated into the soil. Otherwise, photodecomposition can happen. So for pre-plant incorporation, the herbicide should be mixed in the soil. And the rate of application is 1 kg AI, active ingredient per hectare, or pre-emergence application of pendimethalin. If one is not interested to go for PPI, pre-plant incorporation, then pre-emergence application can be done. And in this case, pendimethalin is the most commonly used herbicide. It is used in all kind of oilseeds, pulses, cereals, so very widely used herbicide pendimethalin, and active ingredient is 1 kg AI per hectare should be used. For example, if it is 30%, then about 3.33 liters of commercial product can be taken in about 400 or 500 liters of water and is sprayed immediately after the sowing, because it is pre-emergence. And one precaution should be taken while using pendimethalin as pre-emergence, that there should be enough moisture in the soil. If your soils are dry, then this herbicide will not be effective. So better to go for immediate application of pendimethalin after sowing. If the weeds emerge after planting, isoproteron at the rate of 0.75 kg per hectare may be sprayed 30 days after sowing. So this is also some herbicide is also available in the form of isoproteron. So number of herbicides are available like flucloranidin, pendimethalin, isoproteron, and there may be many more herbicides. But there it is better to go for integrated approach. And also intercropping of vegetables like spices and other crops with Indian mustard and Karan Rai was found effective in reducing weed infestation. So intercropping practices can be practiced to reduce the weed growth or competition by the weeds, because in place of weeds in free spaces, your intercrop will grow and it can suppress the emerging weeds. So therefore, intercropping is also part of integrated weed management, and this approach can be adopted in rapeseed and mustard group of crop. Rana and Pachori 2002 and Rana 2006 have already reported that certain vegetables or spices or many other crops can be intercropped in Indian mustard, Karan Rai, for reducing the infestation by the weeds. Orobanki is a serious parasitic weed of rapeseed and mustard. Already discussed, it is total root parasite, and there are number of species of Orobanki, but for rapeseed mustard the most important one is Orobanki aegyptica. Orobanki aegyptica is among the most significant parasitic weed, severely decreasing the quality and yield of rapeseed mustard. So this weed, particular parasitic weed, should be reduced. Certain crop rotations are helpful. The parasite Orobanki appears as clumps of whitish, yellowish, brownish or purplish broom. Broom means just like jhadu, along with the mustard stem at ground level. It consists of a stout fleshy stem 25 to 35 centimeter high, covered by small thin brown scaly leaves. For reducing infestation of Orobanki, avoid continuous cropping, means you need to go for crop rotation, change the crop. Do not go for sowing of rapeseed and mustard crop year after year or every year, just give some gap. Preceding crop like cowpea, black gram, horse gram, sun hemp and cluster bean can reduce the menace of Orobanki in the next rapeseed mustard crop. Follow crop rotation with cereals and legumes, and sesame mustard sequence significantly reduced Orobanki infestation. Apply soybean oil on Orobanki. So these are the options available for management of Orobanki. So hope you could understand the topic of nutrient management, water management and weed management in this lecture, and it is really important to note that nutrient and water and weed interactions are quite common in agriculture. Hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you very much.